Ladies and gentlemen, we are roughly 24 hours removed from the August 13th Made by Google event where the Pixel 9 series of phones, in addition to some other things, were announced. If you haven't seen that event, I did take the hour-and-a-half long event and I condensed it down to about 18 minutes and posted it here on this channel. Link in the description down below if you want to kind of speed read that event and get the full context. In this video, though, I'm going to tell you what I thought about this event, specifically the Pixel 9 series of devices. I'm not going to talk about the Pixel Watch or the Pixel Buds in this particular video. We'll address that later on. There's just so much to cover with just the phones. That is where I'm going to start with this video. Before we do get started, though, I do want to point a couple of things out. During this live event, which I was live streaming alongside with 500 some odd people in the chat, that chat was fairly negative, right? The more that they talked about AI features, the more negative some people in the chat got. And it reminded me a lot of prior Samsung events and prior Google events as well. I've noticed that it just seems like there's a group of people that as soon as they hear the word or the acronym, the phrase AI, artificial intelligence, Gemini, whatever it might be, whatever form it takes, they kind of just tune out. They say, I don't care about this, I don't want this, and they just move on. Now, look, I'm not going to try to convince anyone that they are wrong about this. You're going to have your own personal feelings on these features, and those are your subjective feelings. So again, I'm not going to have to convince you that you're wrong. What I am going to say is this. Yes, absolutely. Cramming AI into random places as means to sell something as a marketing ploy is absolutely annoying. But dismissing a useful feature because it happens to use some form of AI or the word AI was used is definitely something that I'm personally going to question. You're going to have to explain to me why you're dismissing a potentially useful feature. And if all you can tell me is I don't like AI, I might be a little bit dismissive of that opinion. And that's actually where I want to start with this video. We're going to talk about some of these brand new features coming to the Pixel 9 series of devices. I think that it is absolutely true that the biggest things about these new phones are happening in software. We'll talk more about the hardware later, but again, let's start with some of these software features. Let's start off with a feature that the more I've thought about it, the more excited for it I actually am, and it's something called Call Notes. Basically, what this thing is going to allow you to do is to have a quick transcript and also a summary of any phone call that you take. Now, this is being processed on device using Gemini Nano, so it should be secure, right? This isn't a recording of your phone call being uploaded to a Google server and then the transcript being sent back to you. This is happening locally on device. Again, when I first heard about this, I thought, this seems okay, but the more I think about it, the more I think about how often I'm on a phone call and I'm having to put it on speakerphone to add an event to my calendar, or I'm taking a note, or I hang up and I think to myself, what time was I supposed to be there? I don't remember what they said. Being able to just go into my dialer and read the transcript and see what they said, that seems extraordinarily useful. Now, to my knowledge, you don't actually have like a full audio recording of the call. It's just the transcript. I'm not sure how you may or may not feel about the privacy concerns there, and this may be something that works in some regions and not others because there are different laws in different places. But to me, this is something that I am absolutely going to use all the time. Pixel Screenshots is another one that I am sort of slowly coming around to. This idea that you can simply screenshot your phone and it's going to allow you to organize these screenshots into different collections, and each individual screenshot is scanned with OCR so that it becomes fully searchable. Not just the words, but actually the content of the image itself. So if there is a picture of a bike in the screenshot and you search for bike, it is going to pull this up. The way that they kind of explained this started to make some sense to me. I do still think it's slightly problematic in the sense that I'm going to have to train myself to just take lots of screenshots to truly get the most out of this feature. But if I can do this, and then I can organize these screenshots into collections, there is certainly some usefulness to be found here. As you can see in the demo, searching for a certain item and then asking a question actually gives you a result. It's able to not just find this shirt, but actually tell you the price. And you can jump from there to finding the thing online and purchasing it. Lots of synergy. And again, I think this looks pretty cool. When they were explaining how AdMe works, it hit me that just the other day we were going for a family visit to Dollywood, and a complete stranger walked up and asked me to take a picture of his family. He handed me his phone, I took a couple of pictures, and I handed it back. With AdMe, he could have stood there, taken the picture of his family with a little bit of space off to the side, and then had someone else from his family walk over, take his phone, he steps in place, you take another picture, and the Pixel 9 stitches these images together to look as though you were all in the shot. Again, look, you cannot tell me that this is not stuff that people are going to find useful. It might not be something that you use every day, but it absolutely is going to add value to this phone. You guys may have seen me talk about Samsung's sketch to image feature, where you can take a photo and then use the S Pen to quickly doodle something on top of it. The AI will try to determine what you sketched, and it will try to generate a photorealistic version of that and then place it on top of the image. I thought this was really, really cool. But honestly, what Google is doing here with Magic Editor makes a lot more sense to me, because I can't draw, but I can indeed type. With the new version of Magic Editor, these new improvements coming, they're adding a lot of really cool stuff, right? So not only are you going to be able to circle a region or tap to have it automatically select a contiguous region and then type in words what you want to be there, it's also going to give you the ability to reframe the shot automatically. As you've just seen, it was able to zoom out of a photo and then use generative AI to fill in the missing data. This stuff is really, really neat. Now, yes, it does open up a can of worms when it comes to the age-old question of what is a photo, but again, this stuff is just cool, and I'm going to use it. And there are several more, right? So they're finally reworking panorama mode, which I am actually really excited to see. You have image generation inside Pixel Studio, which is something that I'm probably not going to use too often, but I already use image generation with Gemini from time to time, so having it sort of in a nice package right there on my phone, I am going to use it from time to time. Not necessarily a big deal. And then, of course, we've not talked about Gemini at all, and they did about 37 Gemini demos showing it doing all manner of, things ranging from not very impressive Google Assistant stuff all the way to fairly impressive stuff like having it scan a poster and then reference their calendar to see if they were free during one of the dates that were found on the poster. They also showed a demo where somebody was watching a YouTube video. They opened up Gemini. Gemini understood that the question was being asked about that YouTube video. They asked them what foods were being shown in this video. It went through the transcript found in that YouTube video, and it listed those items for them. I just really like the way that Gemini is finally starting to link in with other Google products. Is it happening as quickly as we all wanted it to happen? No, of course not, but it is happening, and these features are rolling out in the next couple of weeks from what I understand, and they look really cool. Now look, Google did spend what I would describe as an inordinate amount of time on these AI features, and that's why I was able to condense an hour-and-a-half long show down to about 18 minutes. But you can't tell me that Google did not just deliver quite a few useful new features. And I think that it's really important to remember how a lot of us felt watching the last couple of Samsung events, only to then find out that those new phones did outsell the prior phones. A lot of people said the S24 line is exactly like the S23 line, but with some quote-unquote useless AI features. And then the S24 phones outsold the S23 phones. The same things were said during the Z Fold 6 event. And guess what, guys? Z Fold 6 sales appear to be up, at least in terms of commission sales and things like that I've heard. I don't have like official numbers, but it does, to me, seem to be a strategy that is working. Let me put it to you like this. There are two primary ways that you can improve a phone year over year, generation over generation. You can do hardware specification bumps, right? You can do faster processors, more RAM, faster storage, these sorts of things. Or you can do software features. You can improve things with the software that the device runs. It is my opinion that we are many years deep into a reality where year over year, generation over generation, spec jumps are effectively undetectable through any means other than synthetic benchmarks and edge cases that don't apply to most people, talking about high-end gaming or video processing. You can tell me that the Z Fold 6 is whatever, 15% faster than the Z Fold 5, but if you put both devices in front of me, unless I pull up Geekbench or I start processing videos or gaming, I'm not going to be able to notice. When apps already launch almost instantly, shaving off a millisecond, it's just not going to be noticeable, and that is why we are living in a time where the software features are just, frankly, more important because they are the only thing that is really impactful anymore. And if you want to take AI features and classify them as their own thing and say there are software features and then there are AI features, and then dismiss that entire category, you're going to be left with not a whole lot to be excited about for the foreseeable future. It's also important to keep in mind that focusing on these AI features actually does open up a new avenue wherein hardware advancements start to matter again, because it's not just about opening Instagram as quickly as possible, smoother and smoother animations, right? We all remember like 10 years ago where you could get the next gen version of a phone and you would go, wow, this is appreciably smoother and faster than the last version. We have not lived in that world for a long time. But with focus on these AI tasks, hey, on-device image generation, that actually can get appreciably faster generation over generation. We're actually seeing that stuff happen in real time. So not only are these software features more important in terms of impact, they are actually more important in terms of showing you where your money's going in terms of hardware improvement. Tensor doesn't score great on Geekbench, but that's not really what Google seems to care about. They seem to care about doing faster and faster with these LLM type things. So now that I've talked about software features for like 10 minutes, let's talk about the hardware a little bit, because I keep seeing people say that there's like no hardware improvements, and I think that that's a little bit silly. So I have this little spec table that I put together using Gemini actually. I just kind of plugged in some information and it organized it for me really nicely. Here's what we have. The Pixel 9, Pixel 9 Pro, and then Pixel 9 Pro XL sort of all lined up here. And the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, I've left off here, but we're going to kind of explain that on its own here in just a minute. $799, $999, and $1099 are your prices. We have seen some price increases on a couple of these models. They do all run the Tensor G4. You have 16 gigs of RAM on the Pro models, 12 gigs of RAM on the base model. So that is an increase. The screens, 2700 nits peak brightness and then 3000 nits peak brightness for the two Pro models. That is an improvement. We have 4700 milliamp hour batteries in the two smaller phones and then a 5000 milliamp hour battery in the larger XL model. And then we have the introduction of the Sony IMX858 sensor in a lot of places. So on the standard Pixel 9, it's going to serve as the ultra-wide. It is a larger sensor, and it should make the ultra-wide look a little bit better. For the Pro models, it's not only going to be the ultra-wide. By the way, I like that it's the same sensor across all three, because that should just kind of help even out the experience a little bit. It's also going to serve as the telephoto, which should improve that telephoto performance, and it is also serving as the selfie camera. It's cropped in a little bit, but look, the Pixel Pros are going to be like fantastic at taking selfie photos and selfie videos. So all but the primary sensor in the Pro models have been upgraded. So again, those are improvements. Of course, we're also hearing that the build quality does seem very nice in the hand. I've heard several people mention that they feel really, really good. I've heard that the haptics are quite solid as well. They have finally gotten rid of the fingerprint scanner that everybody seemed to absolutely hate, and they've swapped it out for a Qualcomm ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, which is the same one Samsung has just used with the S24 line of phones, so that is certainly an improvement. They've added a vapor chamber to the Pro models to help somewhat address the thermal concerns. The modem is newer and is theoretically significantly more efficient as well. They said the Tensor G4 is just more efficient as well. So all of these things are good. They've said the battery life should be improved. So don't listen to this sort of non-hype that the hardware has not been improved. What's happening is people are looking at Geekbench scores and then they're ignoring everything else. And it drives me crazy that there are people that choose to do this. For the Pro Fold, we have a $1799 price point. Again, Tensor G4, 16 gigabytes of RAM. These are both big improvements over the Tensor G2 and 12 gigabytes of RAM before. We also have two displays that are supposed to hit 2700 nits of peak brightness. Big improvements on both of these screens, even if I don't like the aspect ratio they have switched to. You must admit these are improvements. The battery is actually getting a little bit smaller. That is a bummer. We're going to boo that. But hopefully the Tensor G4 is efficient enough to sort of make that a little bit of a wash. Another place where I think that things are probably a bit of a wash is going to be with the camera performance, right? So we do have some newer sensors, but they are smaller sensors. I don't think that they're really going to amount to any real improvement. But what we do have with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold over the Pixel Fold 1 is a plethora of new features. So we do have manual controls for our camera now. And of course, we do have Best Take and Add Me and all of literally the full lineup of Pixel photography, photo editing, the whole suite is here with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. So to wrap this up, for me, this is the most impressive showcase that I have seen in quite a while. I think it tops anything Samsung has done for the last 2, maybe 3. I think it's the best thing Google has done in a while as well. We got 4 new phones. I didn't talk about the fact that there are 2 watches and a set of earbuds, but look, a lot of hardware. And to me, all of it looks pretty impressive as long as you can train yourself to not only focus on Geekbench scores. This stuff from the hardware perspective to me does look pretty impressive. The screens are much brighter. We have a much more refined look that kind of harkens back to, yes, you could say iPhone. You could also say Essential phone. At any rate, it's a different look, and that is exciting to me. You have pretty big improvements to the camera hardware, even though I've actually seen some pretty large tech YouTubers talk about how the cameras are unchanged. Not sure how they didn't know that they have changed actually almost entirely, but I digress. There are improvements to be had here. And then, of course, the whole front half of this video was talking about all of the software features that I found really interesting. Guys, I am pretty darn excited about the Pixel 9 series of phones. And what's interesting to me is that this seems to be one of these instances where you have your vocal minority, because I ran this poll just about 3 hours ago at time of recording. Rate how you feel about the Pixel 9 lineup, 1 to 5, 1 meaning total letdown, 5 meaning they look absolutely incredible. 365 votes, and you can see the results here. Most people are rating this thing quite highly, and very few people seem to be extremely disappointed. Don't let the vocal minority kind of rain on your parade. If you saw these phones and you thought that they looked excellent and you're confused as to why people are being such downers about it, the majority of people thought this was a pretty darn strong event. Guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you want to purchase any of these devices, I will have affiliate links in the description down there as well. You can click on them and make a purchase, and it does help support the channel in a very direct way. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.